Welcome back. My name is Bill Donath. I'm president of the Logan County Genealogical and Historical Society. And I'm here to introduce you to a program that we had in August, the third Monday in August. And we had Gary Dodson come in and talk about the Kickapoo Indians in Logan County. He's been working on that for quite a while, a lot of research involved. And he presented a very nice program. He did not have all of his information with him because of a computer problem, so we may be able to entice him to come back when he has all that together and finish the program. So here's Gary talking about the Kickapoo Indians in Logan County.
Became Springfield.
Calhoun.
And how do you know that?
I'm from Springfield, Illinois.
Oh, do you know who gave it its name?
No, I don't. You got me stumped there.
E-N-O-S?
Enos.
Yes, he is the one that actually named Springfield the first time. Okay, let's try one more. How many of you read Elkhart's little newsletter? Okay. In their newsletter of a few months ago, they were doing an article about Edwards Trace. Does everybody know what Edwards Trace is? Raise your hand if you know. Okay.
Don't or do? Doesn't matter, I probably don't.
Well, Edwards Trace is the original highway from Kaskaskia all the way to Peoria, and then at Peoria it changed over to Galena Trail. But Elkhart says that they are the only place in the state of Illinois that still has a part of the trace in their area. There's two of them in Elkhart. You know where one of them is? You know where the old cemetery is? Okay, the main one is up there that you can actually see. And you see where the ground is pretty rough, but there to go down like this, and that's where the trace is. The next one is in Springfield. And being that you're from Springfield, I'm going to pick on you.
Okay.
You know where Edwards Trace is?
Is it out by the lake?
Is it?
Is it out by the lake, Springfield?
I'm asking the question.
Oh. There's a sign out by the lake as you drive around, and it says Edwards Trace, and I never knew what that meant.
You never knew what that meant?
No.
Well, that's the main highway that went across there before Lake Springfield was even dreamt of. And there is a sign out there, it's in the park area before you get to the zoo and all that. And it's right along the blacktop, and it gives you a whole lot of warning. It says it's here. And so you just pull off in that little parking lot, and there's a sign that's facing the roadway. And I'm going to try and get it so that maybe we can get some signs to point out along some of our roadways, because Walgreens donated the money for the sign that's in Springfield. And we got Walgreens here. And so the other thing is, if you go down the sidewalk a little bit, they've got a little shed. I shouldn't say shed, it's more like a eating under a picnic table with a cup of crap. And if you look off to your right, you can see where the trace goes that way, and then you're gonna run into a house. And then if you go on the other side of those houses, there's another place that goes down and it goes into the water. So there's another place, and it's down by Litchfield. And actually it's a buffalo swallow, and the farmer was smart enough to know what it was because it's been in the family for generations and generations and generations, and he has still kept it. And if you follow I-55 on down to Kaskaskia, basically it's down there right across from Cahokia Downs. That's where the trace began. But it started out with buffalo, elk, and everything, and then it went all the way up and around Lincoln, where Memorial Park is. Then if you remember where they got roads, place where the Route 21, Route 10. I've only lived here 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. And so, but it's a real nice area. And if you follow that on up to Leroy, that's where the other place was, and they got a real nice sign up there, and that's where the Grand Village was, which was the village for the Kickapoo Indians. And then follow that across over towards Prairie Lakes. And then you hit what they call the Lena Trail. And they've got that marked all the way up to the state line. So if they can get markings every mile up there, why can't we get some here that'll point them back into Lincoln and get some revenue? Okay, the next one. What was Lawndale called before it was called Lawndale? How many of you has lived here all your life? You don't know the original name for Lawndale?
No.
What are we here to talk about tonight? That's what Lawndale was originally called before it was called Lawndale. It's called Kickapoo. What were they known for? Think about what it's between. Up north, you had what you call grain elevators today. South of it, you had some more, but you didn't have anything around this area. So that's what they were known for, and that's the reason why the trains were coming across here. How many of you are from the Lake Fork area? Okay. How many of you can tell me how the original lake, how big it was? How many miles? Nobody? Does 14 miles long mean anything? Does 3 or 4 miles wide mean anything? Does about 4 inches deep mean anything?
I can swim in that one.
That was the size of what that lake was.
Only 4 inches deep?
Huh?
4 inches deep?
Yeah, and that's when it was wet. Then it became from a lake to a swamp. Now then, they brought in a dredge. That was, did you ever see pictures of that dredge? It's a monstrous thing. It would fit maybe in this building. Now, how do you think they got that dredge to Lake Fork?
A train?
Down the highway? Train wouldn't fit on it. They built it by hand once they got all the lumber. And that's how they dredged that, and that's, have you ever noticed a hill out there? You know what that hill is? Have any of you ever heard of Indian mounds?
Yeah.
That's what that is. You know how many mounds there are in the state of Illinois?
Probably more than we think.
Lots.
A whole lot more than what you think. I wish I knew. That's one of the things that didn't stay in my head. But there's over 100 different mounds in the state of Illinois. And a lot of them have just been plowed down because they take up a lot of space. If you're farming the area, you don't need that out there. You're gonna, and I don't blame them, but what's in the mountains? There's all kinds of artifacts and bodies. And so, all of you have heard of the Cahokia Downs, right? How many of you have been there? Oh, quite a few of you. You know where the Mayans mounds were? In South America? And they said that that group of people just up and vanished. Do people just up and vanish? They work their ways up. The very first place that you can find mounds is in Georgia. That's made on the very same scales, and that is what the Mayans. Then they came up through Oklahoma, and then they made a beeline for Cahokia. Cahokia has still got the reputation for being the largest, most populated mounds ever existed. And what happened to all those people? They started breaking off into individual tribes. You know, we just didn't come along and say, we're gonna be Kickapoo today, and we're gonna be Algonquins tomorrow, the Apaches the next day. Actually, we started breaking down because we had people chasing us. It's just like the Kickapoo. The Kickapoo didn't originate here in Illinois. They came from out east. The first true place that we can find is in Ohio, the very northwestern corner of Ohio. They have suspected that they came from farther east because they have found some artifacts that go back to what the Kickapoo more or less did. But there, you've heard of the Algonquin nation? Okay. Well, is there a difference between nation and tribe? A nation is a group of tribes. Not like with the Algonquin. They had 5 tribes that was part of their nation. All they did was come down out of the east, and they came right towards the Kickapoo. From Ohio, the Kickapoo left. They weren't fighting people back then. They were very subtle type people. They didn't want to be bothered, but they didn't want to fight either. And they crossed over into Indiana, and Indiana into Wisconsin, Michigan, Illinois. Now, how many of you know what the Northwest Territory consisted of and where it started or ended back during that period of time of the 1600s, 1700s? The Northwest Territory, where is it? Or where was it? That's right. Did all of you hear it? Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin, that was all called the Northwest Territory. Let's test your memory a little bit further. Of that territory, what was it all originally called to begin with before it was the Northwest? What state of the Union was it? Virginia. There's a man that's been reading his history books.
Yeah, he's very
After it
smart.
got broke
He's just
away.
remembered everything.
Huh?
He remembers a lot.
Well, yeah. After it became part of another state, what part of that was the other state? Sangamon County was a part of this state. Logan County was a part of this state. If I helped you a little bit, like, it starts with a K, Kentucky. How many of you thought you were Kentuckians? You were. This was all part of Kentucky. And then somebody had a bright idea that Kentucky's too big, we're gonna break it down. And then they kept on breaking it down. Was Logan a part of Sangamon?
Yes.
Okay. Now we're getting closer to our time of living, right? You were probably born about then, same time as I was. And so, now we're getting closer to home. Now we're getting closer to what the Kickapoo actually did. They were farmers. Just like some of you are in here. They were farmers. They enjoyed their farming. The women had their duties, not enough as far as I'm concerned. But they still had some duties. And she made a funny face. She didn't like that remark.
I object to that.
No. The men did all the hunting. The men did all the preparation. The women did all the planting, all the fixing, you know.
Everything else.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't start fighting until they started getting pushed. And once they started getting pushed, they were like guerrilla warfare. And they were going to fight back. I hate to say this, but I had relatives that are up in Galena that I did not know about until I started doing some research on it. My ex relatives up there were trucking them out, all the Indians, specifically the Kickapoo, out of the state of Illinois into Missouri. He got government contracts to do it. What they didn't get on the wagons, they killed. Heck of a job to have, isn't it? Just because you had a governor and a president that hated Indians. And they literally hated them. They wanted them all dead. How many states in the United States right now prohibit Indian reservations in their state? How many of them?
30.
5. Is Illinois one of them? Yes, it is. And so our beloved governor at the time, Edwards, he formed what they called the Rangers. And they've even got a couple of books, and one of them's back there, that says that he went up Edwards Trace, because they named Edwards Trace after him. And he made a wider, more usable road. How many of you believe that statement? He didn't have any manpower, tools, equipment, or anything to make a wider road. It's like when I was teaching genealogy, and I always told the students that were in here, Brenda, what did I always say? Check 3 sources before you ever think it's true. Don't go with 1, don't go with 2, check at least 3. Are you guaranteed you're going to be right then? No, there's no guaranteed in life at all, except that you're going to die. So when the Rangers came through, they started slaughtering all the Indians, burning their villages. They came here, they went to Memorial. Now, I'm not saying that the Indians were pure saints, because they went into Kentucky and did what? And brought back a female with a couple of kids, and then ransomed them off to her husband to get more supplies. So they weren't by any means the soul of the earth. They were bad, but they should have been taken care of other than slaughter every single person that's in their village. We talked about the village that was at 10 and I-55 that was stopped construction during the building of the bridge down over there. That was about, what, 75, if I remember correctly? I'm having a hard time with these dates. But look at all the artifacts that they got out of that area. A lot. And for those of you that may not know it, may not have heard it, but the state was back in the area late fall and earlier this year, looking at some more ground around this area to have another study. And if you would like to help or something, if you see something in the paper, you can contact usually the U of I or the state of Illinois and ask to be part of it. I talked to the guy that wrote an article about Edwards Trace a couple months ago. And we got to be real buddy-buddy over the phone. He's a barge captain, and he lives in Kentucky. And through talking to that, he says, Gary, I'm gonna be back up there on Edwards Trace next year, and I wanna hire you. So I got me a job if I want, if I can still walk around. But just think how interesting that would be, and all the things that you can find. You know, everybody asks me, they say, why do you like genealogy? To me, it's just like doing my own job. I'm hunting crooks, because that's what I did. If you were a bad person, I was out looking for you. Now I'm looking for your bad people. So, it's no different. No different. Now I forgot where I was. Okay, back to the Rangers. You know, the sad thing about it, and I had only seen this a couple of times, and I asked Bill about it. I said, Bill, I just have heard and read where the Grand Village, the main village that was up by Leroy, that it was all the people were killed off by smallpox. You know how many times smallpox has been in the state of Illinois? 4 times since 1650. 4 times. And it wiped out an entire Indian village. Okay. Is it true? All I can tell you is what I've read, and I've read it more than just once. But it's something to think about. Is it any different than what we just went through a couple years ago? And I guess in some respects, we're still going through a disease. So, and then they went on up into Peoria. Luckily, they knew where the state line was, and they stopped. But here's a guy that enjoyed killing people, and we promoted him to governor and gave him the military rank. In fact, here's something else I want you to think about, and then I'm going to quit, because I can't remember much more. But anybody that would like to have the stuff, when I do get it all put together for you like I intended, leave your name with Diane. She's my secretary and kicks me in the butt all the time. And so just leave your name and I'll get you a copy with all the facts and numbers. And I really do apologize.